Today, I'm honored and humbled to talk about a special day today is of Vietnam veterans. Tuesday, March 29th, 2022, like communities around the U.S., we pay tribute to Vietnam veterans and their families on National Vietnam War Veterans Day. The U.S. involvement in Vietnam started slowly with an initial deployment of advisors in the early 1950s, grew incrementally through the early 1960s, and expanded with the deployment of full combat units in July 1965. The last U.S. personnel were evacuated from Vietnam in April 1975. The Vietnam War was the second longest war in United States history after the war in Afghanistan. And it was the first war brought to us live on our color TVs in our living rooms across America. Approximately 9 million Americans served during the Vietnam era, from November 1st, 1955 to May 15th, 1975. More than 6 million are still alive today. We will always remember those we lost, the over 1,500 missing or unaccounted for, and honor those who came home. Everyone who served should know their sacrifices matter and they made a difference. Always remember, never forget. Promises and commitments to the people and government of South Vietnam to keep communist forces from overtaking them reached back into the Truman administration. Eisenhower placed military advisors and CIA operatives in Vietnam, and John F. Kennedy sent American soldiers to Vietnam. Lyndon Johnson ordered the first real combat by American troops, and Richard Nixon concluded the war. The average age of the American soldier in Vietnam was 19. President Nixon signed a ceasefire in January 1973 that formally ended the hostilities. In 1975, communist forces from the North overran the South and unified the nation. The Vietnam War Veterans Recognition Act of 2017, signed by President Trump, established 29 March as a day to pause and commemorate, remember, recognize, and honor Vietnam veterans, former prisoners of war, those listed as missing in action, and their families. March 29th was chosen for several reasons. It was on this date 49 years ago that the last combat troops departed Vietnam. It was also on this day, nearly half century ago, that Hanoi freed the remaining prisoners of war of the Republic of Vietnam was willing to acknowledge. Common terms used when discussing Vietnam timelines and events many Vietnam veterans can relate to. I include these so you can have a conversation point or piece when discussing the Vietnam War. Ho Chi Minh Trail. The Ho Chi Minh Trail was a military supply route running from North Vietnam through Laos and Cambodia to South Vietnam. It was used to transport weapons, manpower, ammunition, and other supplies from communist-led North Vietnam to their supporters in South Vietnam. The Tet Offensive. The Tet Offensive was a coordinated series of North Vietnamese attacks on more than 100 cities and outposts in South Vietnam. The offensive derives its name from the Vietnamese New Year holiday during which the attacks occurred, beginning the early hours of 31 January 1968 by 85,000 troops. Wo Ha La prison, or Hanoi Hilton, was used by North Vietnamese Army to house, torture, and interrogate captured servicemen. Mostly American pilots shot down during bombing raids. Senator John McCain and Admiral James Stockdale were in prison. Fire Support Base, or Fire Base, was a temporary military encampment to provide artillery fire support to infantry operating in areas beyond the normal range of fire support. Agent Orange, a herbicide and defoliant chemical, one of the tactical use rainbow herbicides. It is widely known for its use by the U.S. military as part of its herbicidal warfare program, Operation Ranch Hand during Vietnam War. We have some members in the House. I'd like them to begin moving forward so we can recognize you. As they're moving forward, I would like to just take a moment to recognize my neighbor, Sergeant Michael Leaf. He was a member of 3rd Platoon, C Troop, 2nd Squadron, 1st Cav, Lynn Center, Illinois. He was born February 7th, 1949. He was a KIA due to small arms fire on December 7th, 1969. Today we are honored to recognize our own Vietnam War veterans or those who served during the Vietnam War eras. And they are members of our house. I'm going to start off first with Specialist 5, Mark Walker. And Specialist is a unique rank that was used in the military years ago, no longer used. Today it'd be considered a Sergeant E5. Specialist Walker served in the Army from 1967 to 1970. He was regular Army. He was not drafted, but instead he enlisted and volunteered to go to Vietnam. He attended basic combat training and advanced individual training at Fort Dix, New Jersey. He also attended some specialized training at Fort Sill, Oklahoma before his deployment to Vietnam. His duty station was in the Central Highlands, Vietnam, where he was assigned to MACV. MACV stands for Military Assistance Command, Vietnam. His duties were assist to local leaders, general population, receive food for locals, and train the local security forces for self-protection. When I asked him something special about his memories, his response was, I would often think to myself, here I am, a 20-year-old kid, sent to train the Vietnam locals as if they could learn from me. Thank you, Specialist 5 Walker. Dr. Paul C. Jacobs, who in his military days was Petty Officer 3rd Class. His military duty assignment during Vietnam, he actually served on the Caribbean Fleet training Marines in helicopter assault aboard the USS Boxer from 1966 to 1967. His total service was from 1965 to 1971. That's what he did. His military duty was actually to transfer and discharge personnel men, and then also a flight deck foam operator. When I asked him about his special memory, he said, while serving on the USS Boxcar, which was a World War II aircraft carrier with a wooden flight deck, almost sunk after receiving major damage from a hurricane north of Cuba streaming to South Boston Shipyard's Navy base. He calls that a humorous memory. He also talked about being near the equator most of the year and heading to Boston in the middle of January in a ship with no air or heat made perfect sense. He said we quickly forgot our minor discomfort when we thought about where the Marines we previously trained were being sent to. Let's go back to that funny moment when he was on that ship heading to the Boston Naval Yards. Boston, because of that trip, Boston is where he met his wife, Rhoda, and they've been together since. He said she's put up with him for over 53 years. Thank you, Dr. Jacobs. Welcome home. Major Dan Calkins is one of those who we often run into when we're talking with veterans. I didn't go to Vietnam, but I served during that time. Well, that's Major Calkins. He was assigned to 1st Battalion, 509th Airborne, 8th Infantry Division, Minsk, Germany, from 1967 to 1969. Major Calkins did not go to Vietnam. Instead, he was sent to Germany. His mission in Germany was to defend Europe. The Fulda Gap was considered a strategic high-speed avenue of approach from communist aggression. His, too, was a real-world mission, similar to what we have in Korea, national defense, and what we saw in Vietnam, willing to give their life in defense of this great nation. Major Calkins expressed mixed feelings on training for war, but not sent to Vietnam. Some would say there is no rhyme or reason on who or went to Vietnam and who or went someplace else. Additionally, a memory he shared was he was loaded on a C-130 aircraft with all his gear ready to go to Libya to secure the airfield in the Six-Day War. And going through checkpoint Charlie, Berlin, Germany was another special memory. Welcome home, Major Calkins, and thank you for your service. American soldiers returning home from Vietnam often faced scorn as the war they had fought in became increasingly unpopular. The men and women who returned from Vietnam were not given a ticker tape parade. There was no big celebration. They were often spit on, called baby killers, and blamed for the unpopular war. Within days of leaving the battlefield, many warriors came home, put on their civilian clothes to once again blend in with society. So today, like every day, when you encounter a person wearing a Vietnam hat, address them by saying, "Welcome home. Thank you for your service." Thank you.